Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. Man, it's been a while. It feels like it's been a while because it has. I've been away for a few weeks, and all the episodes that have been dropping over the last couple of weeks has just been things that Blake and I recorded for this big long trip to a galaxy far, far away. And we got Darian and Ben joining us on the podcast tonight, possibly appearance with Ellen as well. And we've all had recent experiences going to Galaxy's Edge. So not only that, we're going to celebrate 3 years by talking briefly about the podcast. And that being said, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, guys.
Thanks so much. It's great to be back.
Chut chut, is that what they say?
That's right, chut chut.
This is my first time actually like in the physical presence of the new podcasting room, and I feel very, very cool. You might know I sound a lot better too.
Yeah, we've renovated the podcast. It's a bit better in here. We got things on the walls now, things on the shelves. We got a big on-air sign.
Yeah, I remember when it was like 5 people sharing a mic during the Mandalorian discussions, and now I got my own.
Yeah. Well, right now it's in the afternoon right now, so where we are recording in the escape pod. So as they would say on Black Spire Outpost, rising moons, or what else would they say? Bright suns. Good morning, afternoon. Either one of those would work for this time of day. But before we talk about Galaxy's Edge, actually, we got a bit of a celebration because as of August 30th, we just hit 3 years of Star Wars Escape Pod. So, yeah. That's right. Where's the audience? There it is.
Incredible.
There it is. So I figured we'd start off by just talking about maybe our favorite memories, any particular favorite episode, sub-series, perhaps something that was said at one point that changed a perspective or really unlocked a new understanding. Just kind of what kind of memories do either of you have that may pop up when you think of Star Wars Escape Pod 3 years now?
I mean, I have a couple. I can start. I think the biggest thing, I said this before, the biggest thing I've taken away from this podcast is if I have children, they will be watching it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I remember listening to the podcast. I was buying an NES from a guy on Craigslist, and I was meeting him at a mall, and I'm there waiting in the rain in my car, waiting for this car to show up. I'm listening to the podcast, and I hear the argument of Josh saying, the emotional impact of Anakin turning to the dark side is better than the emotional impact of Darth Vader being Luke's father. And I was like, holy crap, he predicted my argument, and I was like fully like, there it is, just changed my mind, and now I go on to preach the truth to other people.
I love it. That's great. I've got to give you the audience on that one.
Thank you.
Audience choice. Darian, what about you?
I think, Ben, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I just feel like multiple times, I've only been on the show a couple times, but every time I'm going on, someone tends to ask me like, oh, what are you doing tonight or something? And I'm like, oh, I'm going on a Star Wars podcast. And it's just like so random that like, you're like, what? There's a Star Wars podcast out there? So I think it's really, talk to someone on the plane on the way home from Galaxy's Edge, actually, about the Star Wars podcast. And I was showing him the links and stuff. So
nice.
I'm a new fan.
It ends up being a funny conversation that there's even a Star Wars podcast out there, and there's actually lots of them. And I don't know, the fact that you let everyone come on the show and just people that don't even someone like me, I don't read all the content and stuff, but I can still, I don't know, have a good time and listen to the podcast. And
Yeah, you know, Star Wars is for everyone. That's the thing, right? Like, there's all these different levels of how hardcore like people can get into Star Wars. But you know, one thing that's like kind of a common flow between all of them is like people just love Star Wars. You know, people love talking about it, right? So you know, they're bravo, leading the crowd of sharing the show on the plane. You know, telling people about it. Well done.
yeah, I'm just trying to
Thanks.
get the commission, right, that we talked about.
Speaking of hardcore, one of the most legendary times when I was on the podcast, it was one of my first times on. It was during The Mandalorian, and we were talking about it after. And so we would watch the episode, and right after we'd talk about it. So there was no, you know, pre-reading to things. And so it was right after, and Josh was like, this audio sounds like the audio that came from the, what was it from? It was a very random... It's like the Ewok special. It was like from the Ewok series. And he's like, yeah. And he looked it up, and lo and behold, there was like an homage to the same like musical riff that played in this Ewok special. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm ever going to compete with someone who can offhand recognize musical riffs from Ewok specials. What am I doing here?
Yeah, you know, it takes a unique mindset to, I guess, pick out Ewok special as like, you know, recent memory. I feel like a lot of people may have not seen those since the 80s.
I don't think most people knew that there was an Ewok adventure series.
I didn't either. I didn't. This was way back in 2005 or 2006, and a good friend of mine, his name's Diego, and he was actually co-host of the podcast for a little while, leading Clone Wars Talk when we were doing that sub-series. And he comes over, I think it was my birthday or something like that. He comes over with DVD, and it's the remastered or the reissue of Ewok Adventures, which is Caravan of Courage on one side of the DVD. You flip the DVD to the other side, and you had the Battle for Endor, which is the second one they did the year later. And I was like mind blown. I was like, there's Star Wars out there I haven't seen yet? And this was before the whole kind of Disney acquisition, before the whole reset of the canon. So for me, this was like, dang, this is more of like the expanded universe that I haven't kind of gone into. It was amazing. And, you know, it was Ewok Adventures, so it wasn't anything crazy, but I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, it's Star Wars that I didn't even know about. And not in the same way that people don't know about the holiday special, because, you know, that's like purposely buried.
Yeah. But like the holiday special gets riffed on a ton. Like it's in the Weird Al white and nerdy music video of like, oh man, the holiday special is something he loves, and it's like contraband. But I think the mediocrity of Ewok special is what sells that. No one even talks about it that it's bad. It's just so under the radar.
Yeah, it's kind of always remained a really weird piece of a good memory of Star Wars for me, which remains to be a critically kind of despised part of Star Wars as well. But you know, there's people out there who love the holiday special. Like I think it's Jon Favreau. He loves the holiday special. I don't know why. I
haven't seen it, so maybe we should do a watch party of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy that's giving us The Mandalorian and all these other lovely things. So, I mean, obviously his love for a holiday special hasn't, you know.
It must be like a nostalgia thing or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my favorite thing is just seeing the Luke Skywalker there, which is actually Mark Hamill, and seeing the CGI Luke Skywalker from The Mandalorian, and somehow the CGI looks more real than actual Mark Hamill from the holiday special. I don't know how they did that.
Well, I have a story about the podcast. It's been brewing for a long time. Me and Blake and I, we were thinking about it for years. This goes back maybe to 2014, something around there, and maybe 2015. And I even made the account. I made the account on the host site where our show is like hosted, and then I made the email for it and everything like that. It was ready to go. We were just kind of brewing as like, how do we approach this? You know, how do we go about doing this show and make it fun? How do we make it different, unique from other Star Wars podcasts out there? Because I mean, now it's a booming industry. Now they're close to 4,000 Star Wars podcasts, which is a crazy number to think of. Yeah. But you know, there's some bigger name one out there. Like, how can we be unique? How can we keep it fun? How can we get our friends involved? How do we make it not super boring and kind of like just educational? Like, because, you know, there's YouTube videos out there that do summaries of stuff. Like, we don't want to be that, and we don't want to be this. Like, what do we do that's unique, right? So eventually it just kind of fizzled out, and sadly we just sort of put on the back burner, and then we just didn't do it. And then years went by. It was like I kept on listening to more and more podcasts, and then I listened to one of my favorite shows is Smallville. And Lex Luthor on the show, Michael Rosenbaum, he started up a podcast called Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. And I was just like, you know what? This has nothing to do with Star Wars, but like I'm inspired. Like this is a great podcast. Like I'm inspired. And more recently, he finally did a one called Talkville, which is rewatching with Tom Welling Smallville episodes week by week, and they talk about it. And it's the first time they've actually seen a lot of these episodes because they didn't really have an interest in watching their own show, right? So it's been great to kind of like follow his stuff, but it's just kind of continuously kept me inspired to like just do this thing. And so as well, whenever I hear other people go like, you know, I love the podcast, or I love coming on the podcast, or whatever, it's just like, yeah, it's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah.
So finally one evening I sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I just got like, you know, whether I have Blake's involvement or not at the beginning, I'm just going to start with putting together a musical intro. You know, I just found an evening I was just kind of like, you know, I've got the feeling that I can do this now. Let me just like throw something together. And I had a temp track in the audition, in the tracks that were I was planning like the intro music, and it was this one, as you know, the I'm Han Solo from Star Wars Connect.
I recognized. I was so proud. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and I just started downloading different like little audio clips, little sound effects here and there, and I was like just throwing it all together, and I was like, yeah, I'll replace the song at some point. And I found myself buying a microphone, doing the intro, publishing it out, and I was like, okay, well that's it, it's out there. And then it kind of caught after like hearing it so many times, because I re-edited it, you know, a bunch of times. After hearing it so many times, I was like, it kind of stuck. So it just kind of became permanently part of the intro, and that was that. I was kind of hooked. So we just kept going. Brought a buddy on of mine, Diego, who was simultaneously kind of longing for more George Lucas Star Wars, and he hadn't seen Clone Wars, so I said, well, why don't you come on? We'll watch Clone Wars together. We'll do an after show. It's going to be great. And that's kind of how we got started. So here we are 3 years later, and it's great to continuously have such amazing people on kind of week to week. So
Do you have like a favorite moment, or like what's the time you had the most fun on the podcast?
Oh, most fun I've had. I mean, I have a really good time running those Star Wars trivia nights. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys partaken in any of those?
I actually have to
I've
apologize.
listened to them. I haven't partaken.
Okay, all right. We got to get you on next time there, Darian.
I have one apology. There's one that I say that Exegol is the Sith homeworld, and I got Exegol and Korriban confused. And I remember that was the end of one of the trivias. And I was like, oh my goodness, everyone's going to think I'm an idiot now. And I was like, man, I'm so stupid. And I was like, man. And I was thinking of Korriban from the Old Republic. And I was like, Exegol, yeah, Old Republic, Sith homeworld. I remember Ben Lacton made a joke about it. And then I was like, wait a sec. Oh my goodness, I got the question wrong. I think I got the question right. I think I guessed.
Yeah.
And so I was like, my goodness. But after that, I've always felt bad, because I remember winning that trivia and still saying that. I was like, oh man, people think I'm an idiot, and I won based on luck, which I did win based on luck.
There's some tough questions on there. I think we're approaching 200 questions. I always kind of, if I think in one, I just throw it in there. Like, always add it to the list, and it gets jumbled up in the hierarchy of difficulty. Whenever you go up a tier, you know, answer a question right, you go to the next level of difficulty. But it's fun. We're gonna have to play that again at some point. But yeah, and thank you both for sharing those stories about 3 years. I guess if we get Ellen hopping on, we'll have to ask her as well. But otherwise, I mean, let's kind of transition over here to Galaxy's Edge. All right, so I've got a document here which has a variety of points that I wrote down for Galaxy's Edge. Numerous amount of things. So I'll just kind of start and work our way down to the part.
Were you taking notes while you were there, Josh?
I actually was, but the part that I wrote down here is actually just a brief intro to Galaxy's Edge, and then we'll get into the part which involves both you guys and everyone listening at home. So. Just a little bit of history on Black Spire Outpost is the location that you go to at Disneyland. For those of you who don't know, Black Spire Outpost is where the Falcon is docked. It's where you're walking around. It's the location on a planet which is called Batuu. And Batuu is a planet in the very far reaches, the Outer Rim. And it's very well integrated into the canon now. Batuu has made, and specifically Black Spire Outpost, as well as other locations, has made their appearances in Thrawn Alliances, a Marvel comic miniseries called Galaxy's Edge. It showed up in a novel by the Del Rey. It was Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, as well as young adult novel A Crash of Fate. There was even a VR game called Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and that was a whole kind of RPG experience, which was really, really cool. There was short stories that took place in the High Republic on Batuu at an old Jedi temple there, and a variety of other things. So, there's so much stuff that they've kind of done to try and integrate this fictional location into the canon. There's even been attempts outside of the canon. There was a Sims 4 expansion for Galaxy's Edge. I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago that they did this. So they've really kind of tried their best at making this place as familiar as possible to people. There's a couple books for fans to pick up here and there. There was a Traveler's Guide to Batuu. Did either of you guys pick up Traveler's Guide to Batuu? It's like an interactive book if you go to the park.
No, I never got that.
I did not.
Okay, so there's that as an option for people. There's the official Black Spire Outpost cookbook, and there's a book which is basically a really high quality brochure. It's called Treasures from Batuu. It has a bunch of knickknacks in there, and it's basically a pull-out thing. It tells you about each location in the park. It's a glorified brochure that people actually have to pay for. Yeah. And then there's a book in line with all the other concept art books that they've been doing for games and whatnot. It's called The Art of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. A lot of concept art they used there for designing the park. But there's numerous locations in the park to go to, including 2 amusement attractions and multiple different restaurants and shops. So we're going to run through the list. And I know you guys may have prepared a score out of 5, maybe. I don't know if I mentioned whether or not to score out of 5, but yeah, we're gonna list our Pablo points for what we thought of each of these experiences. 5 being the absolute best, 0 being I thought it was kind of a waste of money, and everything in between. So let's start off with the amusement attractions. Maybe Ben, you can get us started on Star Wars Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which is a simulator ride in which guests pilot the Millennium Falcon.
Okay, I will say, whenever I tell people about this ride, I say this is one of the best ideas, executed okay. In that, if you are the driver, it is a blast. And so I've done the ride as every role. So if you haven't been, you are in the Millennium Falcon. And there's 6 people there. There are 2 drivers, 2 engineers, and 2 gunners. And the drivers, and your goal is to basically steal coaxium in the Millennium Falcon. And so you basically have to take it from a train, and it's really fun if you're the driver. If you're the driver, you are either piloting up and down or sideways, and you're having a blast. You have to try and get behind the train, and dodge TIE fighters and different obstacles and things like that. It's super fun. And you also then have like this giant lever to take you to hyperspace, everything like that. Super cool. If you are the gunner, you will be holding down a button and it automatically fires. I think there's a way to like kind of do it so you aim, but overall, if you want to, you just hold down the middle button and then it just automatically targets all TIE fighters near you. And of note, they're on the side panel, so it'll either be on the right or left. So you're kind of like looking to the right as you're trying to look forward. And then you might be on, if you're the engineer, you basically have to hit certain buttons that glow if your ship takes damage. And then you also have to shoot the harpoons to steal the coaxium. So that's a quick rundown of it. I've done it. If you're a driver, I would say it's a 4, maybe a 5. I love interactive things. I think it's super fun. Rides that you have control where you get points are my favorite. At the same time, if you are the gunner, I would say it's like a 2. And I think the difference in your role is massive. If you are going and you only have one time to ride it, I would do whatever you can to like let people ahead of you if you know you're going to be the engineer or something like that, and try to get to be the driver. But it definitely is a game changing experience. Also, if you have a sucky driver, you could get like, motion sickness.
Yeah, because you get scored at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Like a video game.
Yeah, and so I've done driving, and I did with my brother, and it's pretty fun. I wish they gave you a little more instructions. And I did with my sister, who does not play video games, and I was trying to like tell her what to do, and she didn't understand it was an interactive thing. And after repeated times of saying it's interactive, she thought I was joking. So I was told it was really fun for everyone in the back of me just yelling at her. It's like, please stop crashing into things, and just try to like take over control so I don't die. But overall, it's super fun if you're a driver. The other roles are okay.
Darian, what are your thoughts on Smuggler's Run? What is it? Smuggler's Run.
Smuggler's Run. Well, first of all, there is a single rider line for this ride, which is nice because if you want to just kind of skip through the line. But like Ben said, that gives you no choice in your role as you just get put where there's room. I honestly like the queue line of this ride more than the ride itself. Like I thought like that's foreshadowing right there. But like the animatronic of Hondo, I thought that was like super cool.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I also... I just loved all the detail of like walking up to the ride, and then as when you're like waiting to like go in, like I don't know, like you're in the Falcon waiting, like, and then you get put in like a boarding group, I think, and then you go into where I don't know what's it called, the control center is, like
the cockpit,
where the steering wheel is, and all that kind of thing. So in my opinion, if you can ask to be the pilot, I've done that before. You just say like I want to be the pilot, and they'll just maybe make you wait or two. Like 1 or 2 boarding groups, but definitely worth it. If you're the pilot, I would give it a 3 out of 5. And if you're not, I would give it a 2. I don't find the graphics that good. Like Ben said, like if you have a kid or something piloting it, it's just no fun because you just keep crashing and it's just like bang, bang, bang.
Right.
Like to give you context, so I've been to Galaxy's Edge 3 times now. And on this most recent trip, I didn't even bother going on Smuggler's Run. I just
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, I think something happened with the connection there.
Oh,
I think we lost him.
Oh, rip. I'll talk a little more on the queue while Josh figures that out. If you have the Disney Play app, throughout the line, there's kind of like crates because you are, doing an illegal shipping operation. So there are crates where you can like scan, and there's a little mini game throughout the line, which is kind of cool. Usually the Disney Play games are like pretty boring, but this one's probably one of the better Disney Play games going throughout the line, so that was kind of cool. Of note, just adding to the line was definitely really cool. My other sister, when we were in Disneyland, asked me if the Hondo animatronic was real, and I was like, whoa. You have not been to parks recently.
Yeah.
It is a really impressive animatronic.
Yeah, it is a very impressive animatronic. They got the original guy to do the voice and everything like that. But I was watching his robe because he wears like that red cloak, right? And obviously like seeing an animatronic that is just wearing clothing and stuff is so cool because like whenever he moves, like that it's just like moving like as he's kind of doing his thing, right? So I don't know. I was just like, wow, it just looks so real. Like it's great. So. The interactive windows, you see the Falcon kind of coming and docking, right? Of course, like when you're going through the lineup, like Darian mentioned, like, you get to see the full size Falcon out the window, and, the thrusters kind of turn on every now and again and turn blue, and you hear the roar of the engine, and it is really quite something. But yeah, I think for me, Pablo points wise, I gave it a 3 just because I was going off of a simple grading system there. But I think I would agree with you guys in the sense that it's definitely like it depends on what position you have in the ride experience itself, and pilot being the best.
It's also a ride where if you know everyone on there, it's way more fun.
Yes.
If you're like an entire team, I did it one time, and I have a big family, and it was 6 of us on there. It was a lot more fun. I did another time where it was me and someone else, and we were both engineers, and it's definitely the one that has a higher high and pretty low lows.
Gotcha. All right, so our second attraction in the park is Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, which is a dark ride in which guests are involved in a battle between the First Order and the Resistance. Darian, want to kick us off with this one? What'd you think of this? How many Pablo points?
I'm going to give this one a 4 to start off. Actually, did I do 4.5? I think maybe I would do 4.5. Like, first of all, I'll talk about the queue line. Super cool. Well, the beginning part, you're just kind of through it like in some sort of a cave kind of thing. And in Orlando, you're thankful because you're out of the sun. And basically, if I remember correctly, you end up boarding a ship. Why are you in the ship again? The first ship you board.
So you go through this room where Ray and BB-8 kind of brief you on a mission, and
Yes,
Poe
right.
Dameron is there as well, and he kind of makes his comm system, and his X-wing is sitting out on a landing platform that you have to walk past to a shuttle. And when you get on the shuttle simulates as like it's taking off, and Poe's actually behind you, and it's through the windows. It virtually shows him also, flying off, and it shows him on the video screen on a different monitor somewhere. And
Yes.
it's amazing. Like the whole simulation of the shuttle's amazing.
I guess it's important to know that there's one room where you go into, because like Disney's big on like their queue room. So there's one room where it's like Ray and she's kind of briefing you, and then you go into the shuttle. Are we allowed to do spoilers? Spoiler alert.
I think we can safely.
Yeah, because this one's definitely a little more spoilery than.
Yeah.
It's not about the experience. This one's kind of the storyline's cool.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So basically,
The hologram,
yeah.
Ray. That was cool. The hologram effect
Yeah.
paid off really
the
well.
hologram looked great. And then even what was the guy's name in the shuttle? General something. General.
The guy in the shuttle was I forget his name.
Carr or
he's
something. General Carr. I
the
don't know,
Mon
something.
Cala guy,
Yeah.
the calamari
Yes.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
Was it Akbar?
No, it wasn't Akbar,
Yeah,
but it was the same species.
Yeah, it was a Kala, but I don't know.
Also looks super good.
Nine
but-
Nine Num is also a co-pilot in that ship, which that guy was on the Falcon in Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Anyways, then you get captured, and what's cool is like when you get captured and they open up the doors, it literally feels like you're in space. Like there's like tons of stormtroopers, like maybe 30, that do like their fingers move and stuff. So like they are animatronics. And then there's like a big door with like TIE fighters flying by and stuff. That's the coolest part of the ride, I think.
The simulated part of space where it's like ships are flying by and the star
it
field.
literally feels like you're in
Yeah.
space. And then like Smuggler's Run, you get put into like boarding groups. There's some more waiting. And then, you end up going on the ride, and it literally feels like you're like going through a spaceship. You see like so many familiar characters. Like you keep running into Kylo Ren, and Finn is there, unfortunately. And it's just,
Whoa, you like Finn? Whoa.
I'm not a huge Finn guy.
I like Finn.
But like the ride, like it's not like super fast, but it's just like so entertaining. And there's like one part where you go into an escape pod and you like drop.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much to it, and I'm sure it costs them tons of money. But yeah, definitely a 4 to 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Not to mention, I think you were mentioning as well, Ben, about the Disney Play app. If you're a big user of the Disney Play app in the parks, the queue line is even more interesting in this one because there's a whole Bluetooth enabled experience where if you're at that ride, there's a game on there in which you're actually helping. It's part of the whole story too, where you're helping Finn kind of navigate and break into different rooms in a Star Destroyer, which is later part of the story in the ride itself. And you're helping him hack open doors and stuff by doing little jigsaw puzzles on the app and a variety of other things. There's also things to scan, like the cargo boxes all throughout the queue of the lineup. So if you're a big Avid user of that, you'll find enough things to do while you're standing in the, hour and a half long lineup that it takes to get through there. But I would probably give it. I actually gave it a 5 on my score system. So I thought it was just great. The queue, the ride itself, the various simulated parts of the queue, all the way to the very end. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. What about you?
I want to see a video of you riding that ride for the first time.
Probably a big smile on my face like an idiot.
I can only
My favorite
imagine.
part of that ride, though, that didn't get mentioned, is throughout the park, they're kind of in character-ish to varying degrees. But when you're in the lineup for this ride, I've taken a couple people who is their first time and they might be new to Star Wars or new to parks. And the question you will always hear is, when did the ride start? Because as soon as you're in that first movie room, first showroom, the experience is just turned on. It's not like a showroom. You go back to a generic lineup. It's like The people are in character. You're moving to a ship. And it just feels like this is one seamless experience. That being said, I like going fast, and I like to go to my parks to go fast. And I'm a little more of a thrill seeker, so I'd still give it a 4. I would say like I would be about the same. If I'm the pilot on the Smuggler's Run or taking this one, I would value about the same.
I forget who I was talking to recently about this ride, but someone said this. It's gonna kill me not remembering who this is now, but someone said to me that when they went on that ride, when they get onto the shuttle, which takes off and Poe Dameron's flying behind you and stuff, you get the animatronic pilots at the front and all the simulated windows and like the flashes of green of the overhead TIE fighter shooting at you and the rumble of the ship when it gets hit and everything like that. Right before you get sucked into the Star Destroyer and boarded, right? They thought that was the ride, and then they get off and it's like, holy crap! Like, where are we? Like, you get walk into the big first order Star Destroyer like hangar bay and everything, and it's like, dang, like,
so
this is pretty nuts.
So if you want to know how it works, basically your shuttle like it actually spins. So one of the cool things is the door you enter is the same door you exit, but you don't really feel like you feel like you moved up and around. But when that same door opens and you're inside somewhere, it's very mind-boggling to your brain. It's like, oh shoot, because it's the same door, you're not feeling like you're going through a passage of a ship where you open one door, then you go to the other side of the ship and you exit. You go through the same door. It really changes your experience because basically it's on a giant wheel that turns. Mm-hmm.
It's so true though, because when you go through one door and exit out another, it's like your brain kind of knows it's all fake. So you're just like, oh, I'm just going from one room to another, right? And I didn't expect that one to open, but still, like, here we are. But you're right. Like, having the same door open in which the one you entered, you're outside, you see the skies of Florida and everything, right? You know that you're still in a simulated environment, and you exit into the first door to Star Destroyer lobby, and it's like, oh, I just exited the same door I came in. And now we're somewhere else. Like, this shuttle has taken me somewhere else, right?
If I could do a quick PSA for if you ever go on this ride, please stay in. Like, everyone, all the workers there are in character, and they will be kind of harsh with you because they're they're the First Order. I was about to say Empire, but they're the First Order, and they're treating you. You're basically going to be interrogated, so they're kind of like, you go there, go now, listen, and they'll kind of make fun of you if you're slow or if you step out of line or do the wrong thing. They'll kind of like not like yell at you, but they'll kind of make a joke about how like you're the dumbest resistance he's ever seen or something. Play along. Please, it's way more fun for everyone when you play along. I think that's one of the highlights of it. I
played along. There was an officer. Okay, so we're all standing in a group right in the hallway, and he's like asking the front row. I was kind of at the back, and he's like asking the people in the front row, slowly going face by face, kind of looking them in the eyes, and he's like, which of you has information of the resistance base? And then I piped up from the back, I was like, have you tried Dantooine? And like the guy in front of me starts like laughing, of course, because he gets the reference. And then, but the officer, he didn't crack. He was so good. He like looked at me and he's kind of barged between the front row and just kind of scoped in on me. He's like, he's like, what do you know about the base? And, he just kind of like zoned in for a second. It was so good. And then, of course, then we got sent into the little cell where we get broken out by the resistance on the other side of the wall, which is also a very cool thing. If you've never done the whole lineup thing before, it's great. They saw open a piece of the wall and they throw you into one of these like little pods that the R series is driving around. But really great ride, really great. I would call it an experience. Really. Yeah.
It definitely, there's one kind of thrill-ish part, but mostly you're there to see like full-size AT-ATs and move around like, whoa, you feel like you're on the inside of a Star Destroyer, and that's definitely the coolest part.
It's also worth mentioning that when you do the ride, there's 2 pods that leave at the same time from the room. And if your experience is slightly different in each pod. So if you get a chance to do it twice and you manage to get the one in the pod in the front or the back, it's it is slightly different how they are programmed to navigate around the Star Destroyer and everything like that. And I found that the experience in either I think it was the
did you like going up the elevator? The
Yeah,
AT
that's
or
right,
do you
'cause-
like going around the side? Because those are the big difference.
Right.
In those two.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference. I also noticed that one of the pods is on sync with the audio at the very end when you exit the ride and you pass the Mon Cala pilot guy, the admiral. His voice is synced up on, and the music and everything is synced up better on one of them as opposed to the other one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But overall, really cool experience. Definitely more of an experience than like, whoa, I'm going to go on a ride in that traditional sense of you're on a roller coaster that moves fast.
Yeah. How many Pablo points?
I think I said 4. I think I said if I'm
4.
the driver of the Smuggler's Run, they're the same.
Okay, so
They're
we got a
about equal.
4, 4.5, and a 5. Okay, so we're pretty high. I think that's the highest thing on the whole list.
One thing that's worth mentioning, do you guys think this, like, first of all, this ride's usually, if you haven't been to the parks, it's usually really busy. So the best time to hit it is either like after it's been shut down and you try to like run on, or the beginning of the day you run on, like many other people. But do you think it'll be as popular in like 5 years? Like Ben said, it's not really a thrill ride. So it's something that I personally would ride maybe once or twice a visit.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Incredicoaster in California, I'd ride like 10 times.
I think you're right. I think in a couple of years it's going to die down because the popularity of this ride reduced Star Tours to 5 minutes flat.
Yeah.
Every time. We just rolled right on a Star. We must have done Star Tours like
Also, should we
8,
chat
10
about
times
Star
or
Tours?
something like that. Yeah, I mean, I love Star Tours.
Oh, I
still.
loved it. I went on
It's
this
great.
time and I was like, wow, I did not know how much I like Star Tours.
The cool thing about Star Tours is it's usually different every time, right?
Yeah.
If you're lucky. So I thought it was great. You know, we got enough kind of different rotations in Star Tours. That was like 5-minute lineup. Boom. Like that was awesome.
I will say, if you're going, I feel like unless you have the early park admission and we're staying in Disney Hotel, I think it's usually like, I remember getting there and it was super busy in the morning and it was weird. Everyone, the first thing they do when they went to Hollywood Studios in Florida was go to, because Galaxies had just the coolest land there, was go there, hit the coolest ride, which was Rise of Resistance, and then immediately go to Smuggler's Run.
Right.
And it was weird because you saw like 150-minute wait go right from there to the other ride. So I thought in the afternoon, like toward the evening, it might have been better after everyone's ridden at once because that's when
Dies
people
down
are
a bit.
going.
Yeah. Yeah, we managed to sneak on right before closing, and I think that's kind of the key. If you put it off all day, you can get a much shorter lineup with Rise of Resistance, but then you can only do it once in the day, right? So, I mean, realistically, we were down there for Universal, Disney, and a cruise, but I found out of all 3 experiences, I found Disney was actually sadly kind of the bottom of my list just because they packed those parks so full of people and everything's so expensive. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, as opposed to like cruise where you're eating for free all the time and the value was way better. Universal, I think I actually, in general, I think I like the experience at Universal just a bit better and when it comes to the rides and
That's
stuff.
a big comparison. But yeah, I would say Rise of Resistance, really fun ride.
Yeah.
Not a thrill ride per se, but it's an impressive ride. I think it's one of those things you get off and you're like, whoa, that was an impressive ride. I cannot believe they built that.
Yeah, absolutely. Big feat of engineering.
Do we go into the third ride of Star Tours now?
I
It's not
guess
technically in Galaxy's Edge.
it's like yeah, I guess
On
it's
the outskirts.
technically just
Yeah.
on the outskirts. Yeah, well, yeah. Just briefly, what do you guys think of Star Tours? I mean, how does it hold
don't-
up today?
I don't love it.
You don't love it? No.
No, it's a classic, but I actually haven't done it in previous Disney trips because of like motion sickness. But I did it this trip and I didn't feel sick, and I thought it was, I don't know, it was better than I thought it would be.
They've remastered
Maybe
it. Every
maybe
year they add
2.5.
more. Yeah, every couple of years they add
Yeah.
more planets and stuff to it. So more
Definitely
recently-
worth doing.
Yeah,
2.5.
2.5. Right?
When I was on it this time, so I went on it many years ago because it's an old ride, right? And so I've been on it like when I was probably in like grade 4, like not grade 4, probably grade 7-ish, right? So like many years ago, and it was cool. And I went on this year, and there was this one kid who was absolutely losing his mind that this was the scariest experience he's ever had in his life. He was fully in zone that we were on this trip that was about to be blown up, and he was every time it swerved, he'd yell. He's like, "Watch it!" And I will say that did improve it. That did change my
Just
vibe.
super in character.
Oh my goodness! He was like, "We're gonna die." I was like, "Dude, it's Star Tours." It's Star Tours. I will say, I think it was more fun, even though they changed it to the sequels, which, I don't have as much.
They've
of a
thrown that
connection.
in, but they haven't gotten rid of all the other stuff.
Yeah, so the one we did was a sequel one, and I don't have the strongest connection, but it was still really fun. I loved it even more than when I was a kid. So take it. I thought it was more fun.
I think it's improved with age as they've added in more locations to the rotation and everything, and it definitely helps being a 5-minute lineup. You literally just get on and boom, like you're on the ride, right? So like I got to give it like just the amount of times that we just enjoyed going back on it again. I got to give it a 4. Like just. It's still great in my opinion. It's still such a great ride, without nostalgia aside, it's just super impressive. Like how they do the lineup. It makes you feel like you're actually going through a bit of an airport. Yeah, and then you get the baggage security droids off to the side, like with the X-ray and everything, and they're kind of going through people's luggage. They go, oh, this person's not going to need this anymore, and so there's a bit of comedy kind of in there. And there's a bit more of a George Lucas in Star Tours.
There is. You feel it a bit more. Maybe maybe that might be nostalgia, but I just feel like I'm like, wow, this was very much George.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So I mean, I still like Star Tours a lot. We got we got the Rise of Skywalker showing up in our rotation. So we had that big water world that the Death Star 2 is like kind of crashed on. So we had that location. We did have a lot of Phantom Menace. We had all of Naboo, which is a great one because you get submerged underwater. And
that's awesome.
and the fish start coming after you and everything. It was really cool. So we had that, and the crate from Last Jedi. We had the battle over Coruscant from Episode 3. We had a lot of we went on it over and over and over again for a bit. We managed to get in a few rotations, but I think it still holds up really well.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to kind of the other restaurants and shops in the park. And we don't need to go super into detail, but if you guys have any kind of standout experiences with that, feel free to mention it. We'll start off with Oga's Cantina, a restaurant to sample custom drinks and snacks. Ben, you want to start us off with this one?
I actually didn't get to go this one. I don't really drink alcohol, and my wife who I was with is gluten-free and didn't have any gluten-free options. And there's one thing about this place is that there's a lineup to even get in. Which,
you got to reserve on the app.
Yeah, so we were like, I don't know if it's worth it if she couldn't eat and I didn't want to drink there. So
that's good for people to know, though. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is of note. It is like a bar with some food, but it is first and foremost a bar. Which we weren't really expecting, and then so then we didn't end up going. Although I was a little bit bummed of not going. I was like, we should have went, but we ran out of time. There's a lot to do in Hollywood studios.
Yeah. What about you, Darian?
Yeah, you definitely. I don't think you have to order. Like you can just go in for the experience. Like you guys said, it is a booking system, and I think it will be for a long time. Yeah, I think there was non-alcoholic options. I forget. I didn't go on this trip.
There were, yeah.
There was. Okay, but it's probably like Disney. It's probably very expensive. But was really cool. And there's like a DJ droid and everything.
Yeah,
and
that's Rex.
Like you're in the movie.
Rex. That's the old pilot from Star Tours.
Yes, right.
He's like reprogrammed
I knew there was
to
some
be
sort of connection.
DJ. Yeah, there's like a whole in-universe story about how Rex got there. He's been reprogrammed to be the DJ. And on Spotify, you can look up Rex's playlist from Oga's Cantina. You can find a whole album of music that he plays in the cantina. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, definitely. Like if you're going to Galaxy's Edge, just do it, and then you don't have to get something. But it's kind of unfortunate you can't take a look at it unless you book a reservation.
Yeah. So I gave this experience a solid 4, surprisingly enough, because we actually I was there with my wife as well, and we went in thinking we can get some food here, and but the environment was super cool. Like it was a proper Star Wars cantina and everything like that. The bartenders are all singing a jolly song, and DJ Rex playing the music and everything like that. It was really cool. There's Orabesh all over the place. They handed us a really cool menu, and we actually did end up getting some appetizer dish with ordering some drinks because, we were there. We reserved and waited for it. But slight disappointment being that they don't serve like actual food there. I think the bigger thing for me was we were kind of hoping to get off our feet a little bit, and we ended up being placed at the bar where it's literally just standing. And there's a lot of areas in which there's like standing tables. and should you be so lucky to get an actual like booth. So there are booths there, but there's
a time limit though, right?
Yes, you can only be in for 45 minutes at a time, I think it is. So
Okay.
There's a time limit, and it is mostly alcoholic drinks. I did see a family with kids walk in. It was a family of like 7, and they didn't get put at a booth. In fact, they were supposed to kind of take a spot at the bar next to us, but there was like room for 3 maybe. So they were like huddled next to us, and they were like looking at the menu, kind of complaining there was no seating. Then they were like, oh, it's all alcoholic drinks. And then they were like, yeah, no, but there's like some non-alcohol, but they had no idea. So, just for anyone who's thinking of doing OGAs, go in with the mindset of you're going into a cantina, you're there to order a beverage. You might possibly be standing for the 45-minute experience, and that's it. And you can leave whenever you want. Like, after you flip your bill, you can
that's a
kinda
good
head
point.
out. So, as far as like accepting that mindset, I was like, this is really cool. Like, it's the only thing that comes close to being in an actual cantina in Galaxy's Edge. It was great.
Yeah.
All right. Docking Bay 7 Food and Cargo. This is a quick service restaurant inside of a working hangar bay. Darian, what did you think of this one?
I actually haven't eaten there, so I can't really offer an opinion.
Really? Okay. This is where you get
yeah.
the famous spork. The one that people were stealing for the longest time, so they decided to start selling them instead.
Wow.
That's funny.
No, I ate at Oga's. Not Oga's. I ate at Ronto's Roasters when I was there.
Okay. All right. I ate at Docking Bay 7. I gave it a 4. It was actually pretty good. The menu, they have desserts. They've got meals. You could you just go, you order, you pay right away, you get your food, you sit down. This is my favorite. So like, we're from Canada.
Yeah.
The bill in Canada at a restaurant, let me tell you this,
Way easier.
so much easier.
Oh my goodness. I complained every day I was in the States about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to everyone in the States about this, but I mean, I know our big listener base of ours is actually across the border in the States. I don't know how you guys do it.
Dude, I got to chat with all y'all. Like, what the heck's happening?
Yeah,
over
like
there?
they're having to mentally, like, I don't know how people did this without smartphones.
First of all, they take your credit card. Like, what the heck? And they're just leaving with
right,
it.
right, exactly. So I'm not fond of like the whole, here's my credit card, go and walk behind a wall with it somewhere where I have no idea where it's going. And then secondly, like, I don't know
come back
how.
with a small novel of bills that you have to pay.
I have a theory. People either were just better at math, or people carried calculators in their pocket before smartphones. Like, how on earth are you supposed to calculate a tip?
Can we first tell, so if you come to Canada, here's how it works. Like most normal people, if I go to a restaurant, they will bring a machine, much like how you'd pay at any normal store, and then they'll say, here it is, and then they give me the machine. I can press if I want to put a tip or not, or whatever the tip I want to put in. I hit OK, and then I tap it. It takes max 30 seconds, and that's if I'm slow.
Max. That's with some network issues
Yeah,
on a slow day,
Yeah.
No, like, so at Disney parks, at any Universal park, whatever, quick service is my jam. Like, I just like paying up front, like a merchandise store, boom, swipe it, put in my PIN. If weirdly enough, I wasn't putting my PIN at all at Florida, though, and maybe it's just something that they don't do. But,
Yeah, no, I didn't put my penny down.
yeah. But I was like, I just like paying up front, I don't need to leave a tip. I don't need to worry about mentally calculating out how much 18, 15, 20% is. I don't need to whip out my phone to try and do that.
Because here's the thing. They give you on the receipt saying 18% of your bill is this. And you're like, okay. But then you still have to add that to what the bill is and put the total.
Yeah.
And it's a little worrisome that like you're just writing in, oh yeah, take this amount more money, as if they could just cross it out and say, oh yeah, no.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's my whole long spiel about bills. Quick service is the way to go in theme parks, and also you just kind of boom. You can go in, you eat, you leave, right? Mm-hmm. And so I loved Docking Bay 7. It was quick service. It was what I like out of a theme park place. There was lots of options. There was dietary friendly options in there, and the experience of being in Docking Bay 7 was actually pretty cool. It was, there's a big shuttle on top of the roof, and it's like unloading cargo down through the middle of like the ceiling, and you're sitting in like what looks like a cargo bay, but there's like lots of shipping containers everywhere. That there's like little like booths, like tables and chairs and stuff all over the place. It was cool. We had a good dessert there. It was like a fiery kind of chocolatey cake, which had like some chili spice in it. So it had some heat, and it was interesting. All the food in Galaxies, I got to say this about all the food places, great creativity when it comes to designing the dishes. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Ronto Roasters, a stand to purchase grilled sausage and roasted pork wraps.
Okay.
What do you
First
think
of
of that?
all-
How many Pablo points?
First
Ben?
of all,
How many Pablo points?
I feel bad because I came in not knowing what pork rinds were, and my wife said, "Oh, they're like bits of pork," and then someone we know named Kevin loves them, and I was like, "Sweet." I would we were kind of walking around. I would just love I thought it'd be like a beef jerky, maybe like a little less dried kind of thing. And if you know what pork rinds are, they're like puffed up pork chips. And I was a little disappointed. I was like, this is not at all what I ordered. Overall, Ronto's Roasters, first I'll say the atmosphere is basically there's a central jet engine kind of thing.
That's a pod racing engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pod racing engine over this, I don't actually know what the animal is. Do you know what animal?
It's some sort of creature, in the middle.
Just
It's like
some
roasting something.
Star Wars creatures just, being roasted with the pot. So the atmosphere is kind of cool. It's like, whoa, that's there's fake meat on a rotisserie that is and periodically the engine will kind of sputter to life and blaze a little bit, not with a ton of fire, just kind of shakes and emits light and stuff like that. But it's a really cool vibe, and it's this just feels like what it would be in the Star Wars universe. This is how I would imagine it.
To put it simply, Ronto Roaster is basically like an alien hot dog.
Yeah.
Very fancy alien hot dog.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoyed it. Overall, I wouldn't say the food was as well themed. I mean, when I got I got two things. One of them was significantly better, but I guess I don't really like pork rinds, is what I learned from that trip. Is I just don't like pork rinds as a concept. But especially in the Florida heat, they're very salty, and you're just man, I need a drink. But the rest of it, it was good.
Spend
food.
more money.
Yeah, it was just good food. It was decent. It wasn't whoa, this food is only somewhere in Star Wars. It was just decent. It was meat, and I enjoyed it.
What about you, Darian? Or actually, Ben, how many Pablo points?
I'm going to go with what's the most bang average? And then plus 0.1 for the cooler theming. But I was the food felt pretty average.
3.
Also, if
3.
you go mobile order, mobiling order, it's just way easier. There's always so many people trying to eat everywhere in Disney World.
Yeah. What about you, Darian?
I haven't really eaten Galaxy's Edge. There's a dietary restriction in my family, so we don't.
That's right. Yes.
We have to go to very specific spots. I think my wife could actually have the Ronto wrap, but we just ended up going somewhere else. So like I said, I can't comment on it. I did I've looked at lots of reviews and stuff, and especially Docking Bay 7, it's rated very high.
Yeah.
And same with the Ronto wrap. I just haven't had it myself, so definitely worth trying if you're going there. I just haven't had it.
This is the only other thing other than Rise of the Resistance that I have a 5 for. I had a Ronto wrap, and in the VR game for Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, there's actually a side mission where you can actually collect and eat the Ronto wraps around one of the restaurants in the land, right? So I was like, okay, I got to try this, and it was amazing. It was it was like a hot dog kind of wiener, but really good. Not your classic kind of IKEA wiener, but a good solid sausage in there. And it was in some sort of pita bread with a variety of other things toppings and stuff. And it was made to look really, really cool. And I was took one bite of it, wow, this is really good. And so I was very impressed. And of course the actual stand itself, like you said, the pod race engine and everything, it's really loud in there.
It is.
That's all the sound effects for the environment is super immersive, but it's really loud.
So my family is Middle Eastern. My family's from Egypt, and we get a lot of shawarma. And it felt very that. I was like, wow, this was just a good shawarma. I was like,
I feel like I'm eating shawarma in Egypt right now.
I was like, wow. They're just
there's no better way to describe an alien planet.
It was just, okay, think of it. It's the heat, very loud. It felt kind of you're kind of in the Middle East-ish and very hot, loud, nothing super upscale, just people kind of doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Maybe I felt a little bit harsh saying it was bang average. It was good. It was better than a lot of other definitely a notch above oh, you're going somewhere, and I feel bad saying this because I think Ellen's about to come on soon. Ellen is gluten-free, and she loved the chicken strips at Backlot, which is a place in Hollywood, but she's there's gluten-free chicken strips, and we went there more than we needed to for chicken strips, and I had them, and they were decent. I mean, they were chicken strips, they weren't super impressive.
Right.
But she loved them, so I feel bad saying that, you know, they were better than the chicken strips and things like that. But I wasn't the biggest fan of the pork rinds. I thought it was just, it was like, if you like it, it's a cool snack. But if you like pork rinds, I don't.
Go for the Ronto wrap, everyone. That was the best place.
Yeah.
All right. Also, quick service. So yeah, if you're looking for quick service food, Ronto Roasters, you got to hit it up.
Mobile order.
Katsaka's Kettle, that's the next place, which is a stand to purchase a sweet and savory popcorn snack. They got a couple colors from my recollection. They also sell the very famous Coke Dasani, Coke Diet, and is it Sprite?
Oh, I think it's Sprite. The
Sprite, yeah, the 4 Coke bottles, yeah, the 4 different,
the detonators.
yes, yeah, the thermal detonator bottles with the very alien.
That's like those detonators. That's like, I don't want to spend $5 for Coke. I want to spend $8 for Coke.
Honestly,
It's 6. It's an extra
honestly,
dollar.
though, I will actually say that they are super sick.
Yeah,
Like, you feel
yeah.
good drink. You're just like, wow, it's a Coke, but I just like it. Oh, Josh is pulling have one
I've
here.
got one here. I brought one back with me. I just had to get one. The famous thermal detonator Coke bottle.
Not gonna lie, first time I saw it, I definitely thought it was a Christmas ornament.
It's got the cap
Yes,
on
I
it.
still do.
It's got the cap on it, and
Well, because it's red and green. You got red for the Coke and green for the
Yeah.
Sprite, and you're like, oh, okay, this is definitely a
it's definitely it's you know, it's Coke, right? Like, and it's kind of cool holding it in like a spherical bottle, I guess. But man, this went quick. It's not a full size like
No,
bottle of Coke or anything.
As we mentioned, in the heat, it's like, and it's gone.
Yeah, and for $6, like, you know, I was just like, okay, and it's gone. But I was actually thinking I got it thinking like, oh, I'll just keep it kind of sealed and bring it back with me as a nice souvenir. And 20 seconds later, I was already drinking the thing because I was just so thirsty. So yeah, I got that at the popcorn stand. We also got some popcorn. I gave this a really bad score though for Katsaka's Kettle. I gave it a 0.
whoa.
I was happy with the Coke. It was a bit overpriced, mind you, and this is also, we're gonna group in the Coke Droid speeder things that they sell, which are kind of neat as well into this whole thing. But like the visual aesthetic, of course, fantastic. The actual service though of getting this popcorn, let me tell you something about this bag. It is smaller than you know, if you go to like those the fairground, the classic fairground where it's like, or maybe like a make your own little popcorn bags at home. You know, like a teeny tiny little bag. Like, dude,
yeah.
like you pay like $6 or something or $7 for this popcorn. And it's like, what is that? Like 3 handfuls? Like, no, are you kidding me? Like, I thought it was way more than that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I got a solid 0 on that. They got to amp up how much they're giving out. Yeah, because I was a bit ticked off. I was like,
I will say one of my better purchases from many years ago when I went to Disney World was a TIE Fighter popcorn bowl. Those were my favorites. It was like not a bad size. When I get next, you're just walking, both hands shoveling popcorn in your mouth. So I'm sad to see the popcorn has gone downhill.
Yeah, I mean, it looked cool.
Especially, that's such a cheap thing to make. Like, come on,
Yeah.
toss a couple kernels into there.
Yeah, like throw
Everyone's
us
paying a couple $100 to be there for the day. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like that's just it, right? I think they've gotten so penny pinching. I think it's less about the happiness, less about the guest happiness, and more about like how much money can we actually pull out of everything, right?
And it's pretty impressive. Everywhere you look, you're like,
Yeah.
and everything is so expensive.
It is crazy. All right, so next thing, Savvy's Workshop, a shop where guests can create and purchase their own custom lightsabers. I can't say anything about this because I actually didn't do it. I didn't think it was worth the cost. I'm not a fan of the way that the lightsabers look from Savvy's. But what did you guys think about this place if you did it?
I'm just confirming, is this, because I think I've been inside, is there only one place that sells the lightsabers in Galaxy's
There's
Edge?
2. So there's there's one store called Doc Ondor's Den of Antiques. They sell all the replica character lightsabers and a bunch of other things. Savvy's is
okay.
like the experience that people line up for behind.
Yes.
Doc.
Again, you have to reserve that.
Yeah, you have to
Like
reserve it.
I went
It's
to
a whole
reserve
thing.
it when I was there, and I couldn't. It was booked. So definitely do that in advance. I also can't speak on it because I only went to Doc Ondor's.
Right. Okay. What about you, Ben? You have thinking of doing the Savvy's and then you ended up not doing it.
No, I was actually I decided very early when I wouldn't do that. I decided not to do the droids after getting there. It just felt a little more chaotic. But
Gotcha.
going there, we looked at it and it was like kind of talking to other people, looking at other lightsabers. I was like, okay, I couldn't. One of the big things is that unless you're older, I don't think you're allowed to hold the lightsabers. Are you allowed to hold the lightsabers out?
So I'm glad you brought that up.
That's the big question.
I believe you get a sheath of some kind with the lightsaber when you customize one. And they really, in character wise, all the people in the shops, in the cantina specifically, that we're in Oga's hanging out, and there was a family that walked in with their lightsabers on because it was a bit darker in there. And so I guess they flared them up, and then all of the bartenders were like, no weapons, no weapons. You know, they were like losing their minds. Yeah. So it was kind of like an in character way of saying like, don't have those on, and they really don't like it when you have the lightsabers on in the lineups for the rides either. I think they do. I don't think they mind if you're like in front of the Falcon taking photos or whatever, but they don't like it if you have them on in the shop, in a lineup, in a restaurant, anything like that.
Why?
I think it's just, it comes down to that whole character costume thing.
Yeah, so in Disney World, you're not allowed to, except actually recently, you're allowed to wear some specific Star Wars costumes because of the Hyperion, because you can go from the Halcyon. Right? Because of the Star Wars, what's the hotel experience? I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, the Halcyon Legacy, Galactic Star Cruiser.
The Star Cruiser, Galactic Star Cruiser, because they will come into Galaxy's Edge with Star Wars costumes on. Now there's a slight exception, and I read the rules very extensively on this, for some Star Wars costumes. So there are some, but overall, if you're over the age of 14, you can't bring toy swords to be Jack Sparrow. If you're not allowed to be in costume, so you can't dress up like a princess if you're over the age of 14 or 16 or something like that.
Right.
So they're a lot stricter on costumes. And I think with that, I was like, okay, they're already pretty strict on costumes. They said no weapons. I just didn't want to risk it. And the sheath that they gave you looked kind of bulky to carry around for a hot summer's day in Orlando.
Yeah. It's a lot. So I guess we can't really speak to that, but some people have a good time doing it. I
say if you're gonna do it, from what I hear, it is a lot more the experience than actually getting the best lightsaber for your dollar.
Right. Yeah. So, speaking of lightsabers, Doc Ondar's Den of Antiques is the next kind of place that, which is a store where guests can purchase Jedi or Sith holocrons, lightsabers, and artifacts. I give this a place of 3. It's pretty cool. There's an animatronic for Doc Ondar in there who's the shopkeeper. There's a whole story about who Doc Ondar is. In fact, he's a character in the Marvel comic series I mentioned earlier. And he's kind of a guy who collects things. So along the walls of the store, you see like a ton of cool like relics and artifacts from the Star Wars universe. And you can buy holocrons, lightsabers, different little statues, different types of replica of currencies in there. Some little bits and pieces of costumes. How did you guys like this store?
So this store, just so you have an idea of price too, I think like if you want to buy like Obi-Wan saber or something, it's like $170 USD. And building your own at like Savvy's, I think is it 200 to 220? Somewhere around there, just to give you an idea of price. But yeah, I more just like watch people hold them. So if you go in line, which there's a lineup, you can hold up to 3 lightsabers, I guess. That's what they let you do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. The shop was cool itself. It was cool how the lightsabers like all under the glass, and you can there's quite a few options, like many different characters, from even animated shows too, right?
Another thing to mention is there's a separate lineup for those who want to inspect the lightsabers, but you can freely go into Doc Ondar's without needing to go through that whole lineup and just to look at the other stuff. But if you kind of linger near the counter where they have the lightsabers, they kind of like push you away, and they're like, okay, you have to get in line if you want to see the lightsaber. So there is ways to kind of, obviously, like there's tons of YouTube videos of the ones that they have available. There's actually someone who monitors the lineup outside of Doc Ondar's who has a menu of all the ones that they have in stock, and you can inspect them in the menu before you go into the shop. But those are the replica lightsabers. Those are the ones that people get in the little cases. They're the proper character lightsabers. You have a removable blade, all that stuff. They're the ones that I find would probably be the best compared to the Hasbro Black Series lightsabers. So a lot of people really love getting those. There's a lot more options than the Hasbro Black Series versions, but I personally I was like, it's not for me, so I just didn't bother. But I gave the actual store rating a 3 Pablo points just because I was like, it's a cool place to be. So we got Ellen joining us in just a moment, and there she is. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Hello, and you have just also returned from very far away from Galaxy's Edge. We're currently going through the list of locations that people can visit in the park.
Do you want to give us a quick hot take on the 2 rides there? Just real quick.
Yeah.
I thought Smuggler's Run was a more thrilling ride than Rise of the Resistance. Is that a hot take?
That is a hot take. That's a different opinion than the general consensus here. So, what did you like about Smuggler's Run?
I felt more involved in the story, which I know is the entire point of Rise of Resistance, is you're involved, but because it was a smaller group and everyone had more of a role and responsibility, I just felt part of it, and how you act and respond actually really does affect the ride.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. So out of 5 Pablo points, what would you give Smuggler's Run?
I would give it. Can I give it a half mark, 4.5?
Yeah.
Okay, 4.5. Pablo.
All right. Wow, that's high.
Yeah, that's nice. I will say also, Ellen was the only person who I know who was who had the option to go pilot and asked to switch out because said she would make everyone else sick.
Okay, that's because I made everyone sick. One of the times I did Smugglers, I was not very good at left and right, and everyone got sick, and it was not a good experience.
Oh man.
So that is why I'm never pilot again.
So, what did you think of Rise of Resistance then? What kind of score did you give that?
Oh, Rise I would give a 4. They're both pretty high up there, but I would give Rise a 4.
Okay, all right. So also pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're currently on Doc Onder's Den of Antiques, which is the shop that people can go to purchase Jedi, Sith, Holocron, lightsaber, and artifacts. What did you like about Doc Onder's, and what kind of score would you give that?
I would probably give it a 3. What I really liked was that they didn't have just all the classic merchandise. That's where I started seeing specialization of merchandise, which I was expecting more in Galaxy's Edge than I actually found. So
here.
I really appreciated that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I give it a 3. I was kind of hoping more stuff would be in stock. I was looking for Anakin's Chipor snippet necklace that he gives Padme. They didn't have it. I was looking for the currencies, the galactic credit currencies, and I know they also make a Mandalorian one. They also make the Mon Calamar. They only had the Mon Cala one. They only had the Mon Cala. Was it? It's on the tip of my tongue. Flammari or something. Flen. Well, they only had that one, and I was kind of bummed out. I was hoping for the Republic credits, but it is what it is. But Darren, what did you think of that shop?
Yeah,
Flan. Yes, thank you.
Doc Ondor's?
Yeah, Doc Ondor's. Yeah.
I think I gave my opinion.
Oh, did you? Okay. Sorry. What was your score again?
Obviously, it wasn't very meaningful, Josh. No, I just said I actually did kind of hover by the lightsaber booth. I kind of did it I don't know. I just was looking at the wall, then would look over when we watch people touch the lightsabers. But yeah, I would also give it a 3. I don't know, standard.
Yeah.
I think overall in Galaxy's Edge, the merchandise was kind of weak.
Yeah.
I love mugs, and I find there's not that many mug options, and t-shirts. It's a lot of stuff if you want to dress up as a character, robes.
It's in-universe stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in-universe stuff, and I think across Disney World, really, there's not that much Star Wars stuff.
So they have the Star Wars shops in Disney Springs. They have 2 of them, and they're both identical. But I believe they're both identical. But they're called the Star Wars Trading Post or something.
Yeah, I did go in those too, and it's still, I don't know, not. I don't want a backpack that's Chewbacca and random stuff like that. I don't know. I think more T-shirts, more simple T-shirts or retro Star Wars T-shirts would be cool, and they're not there.
They had also a very strong Star Wars toy aesthetic. I don't know if you guys saw this, where it was on the shirt, it was a Chewbacca action figure looking thing with kind of a robot chicken vibe to it.
Yeah.
And I was what a weird direction to really go strongly into merchandise right now.
I saw a lot of shirts with kind of stills from either like early Star Wars Episode 4 concept, like storyboards and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I saw a lot of that with handwriting from people at ILM and stuff on it. So those are kind of interesting, but I didn't get any t-shirts myself either. But you're right about the shops in the park. They're definitely like stylized to be selling like in-universe stuff, which is another reason why I think I like the Wizarding World just a little bit better. Like the stuff in Wizarding World I would buy more so than the stuff in Galaxy's Edge for some reason, because all the stuff I would have bought, like full-on Jedi cloak, tunic, whatever, didn't have any of it. They were just completely out of stock. No Jedi belts, no nothing. It was kind of weird. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Like a lot of stuff they have left is just either for kids or just things I wouldn't buy.
It's almost like if you shop at like, and I don't have a lot of experience in this, but like if you go to like Louis Vuitton or something, there's like 5 things on the shelf to buy.
Right.
And I feel like Galaxy's Edge is the same. It's like there's like 6 robes. You go into a store.
Yeah, you see the same thing in every shop.
Yeah, I was a little
shop.
surprised.
There's like 5 items.
Every shop definitely felt like it had a very similar supplier.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that really annoyed me was, so basically, Elle and I were doing the Halloween day at Magic Kingdom next, which is the one day in the park, besides I think some Christmas ones, where you can wear costumes to park. So we were pretty excited, but I didn't really have a costume yet. We were in the process of moving, and I couldn't find the Jack Sparrow costume I was going to wear. So I was like, okay, I'll buy something, forgetting that they don't sell many costumes like Star Wars will. And so it was a robe. It was a Jedi robe. So kind of it was like the cloak with the hood goes down. And I look at it and I was like, okay, it's very simple. It is like a light brown fabric shaped like a robe. No markings. And I look at it and I was like, okay, I would pay $100 US for this. I was like, that's my peak. I was like, this is if I pay $100, I'm already getting gouged like supremely.
Right.
And I was like, that's like absolutely peak. And I look at it and it was like $139. And I was like, I was so mad.
That's more than the Wizarding World clothes.
I think it was the same price. I think they're both $139.
But those ones are better.
They are better. And I was just
So
like,
much
you
better.
guys.
That's why we bought those ones instead.
We bought those. So I was
It's like
willing
the
to pay
Jedi cloaks are
$130.
just like a linen.
But there was no like.
You could hit Bed Bath and Beyond and pick
I
up
know,
the same
and I was
thing.
like, I could have bought this. I could have bought this online, and I remember like right there looking on my phone and then like just quick check of like Amazon, and I could have got the tunic and the robes for like $50 on Amazon. It's like I can't. I was like, I can't do this.
No.
Because there was no. They didn't make it feel anything like, whoa, this is really crazy. Which is kind of what annoyed me. I was like, I needed something to be like, whoa, this really feels like either a high quality costume or like, I don't know, something that would be like, I wear costumes a lot. I love costumes. And it was just a little just too much where I was like, you guys, this is like, I was willing to pay $100. You guys should have priced this at $80 US. $80 US is already like one of the most crazy markups I can imagine for that. And I was like, I was a little bit upset.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I will say, so I've been to Galaxy's Edge right when it opened, and it was right before I visited LA and Florida, and it was before Mandalorian had come out on Disney Plus, and their merchandise was very different compared to this trip.
Interesting.
Because like the Mandalorian stuff was out, so it wasn't just like all this Grogu and all that stuff, and it was a lot more classic Star Wars, like classic Star Wars t-shirts and like merchandise, and I think the merchandise was definitely better 3 years ago than it is now.
I found that the same with Wizarding World too, but they said that COVID has affected a lot of what they've been able to manufacture and what they've been able to ship out. So at the Wizarding World, and this is non-Star Wars related, of course, but you can no longer, in the park at least, you can still get these things online, but you can't buy them in the park. You can't buy Slughorn's Hourglass or any of the broomsticks. There's like over 13 character wands that they no longer sold anymore. And you can't buy the Quidditch robe. Like I remember specifically, like a rain jacket material Quidditch kind of gown thing that, and they no longer sell it. And no one in the park knew what I was talking about whenever I asked them about it. You can no longer get the Quidditch goggles, but some of the staff members wear them as part of their outfit, but you can no longer buy them yourself. So there's a whole slew of things that was like, dang, like I missed out on all these things. So I kind of went ham on buying a few things, when I was at that park, but yeah, that's actually really good to know, though, that it used to be better and maybe COVID's affected it. So maybe in a couple of years it'll be better again when this whole kind of thing for an excuse goes away. We stayed at a Disney Resort hotel, and they used COVID as an excuse for not being able to ship things from the park to your room. And they
Really?
said,
Yeah, that's weak. That is
yeah,
weak.
it's
also
super
a
weak
really good
because
perk.
they did that. Yeah, it's a great perk. It's part of the reason why someone might stay at a Disney Resort hotel as opposed to a normal hotel, because you can buy big things like maybe a big Dejarik chess table set for whatever amount, $80, whatever it was. But that's a big box to lug around every day, right? Or for the rest of the day in the park. So either you buy it at the end of the day on the way out, or you just, in the old days, you used to go up, say, send it to my room, boom, you'd find it on your bed at the end of the day, right? And at the Wizarding World, they still do that. Like at Universal, they still do that. We were able to do that. We were able to pick it up in the front of the park, at the hotel, whatever we wanted. And they just don't do that at Disney anymore. They're like, no, COVID's killed that. I was like, that really blows.
I think it doesn't. I think they are realizing that they're probably they're still getting the money, probably the same money, and not having to do the extra
it's a
delivery
service
work.
that they
And
did that they weren't making
in
any
true
money
penny
off,
pinching
right?
fashion. Why
Yeah.
bring it back if they
Exactly.
aren't losing money?
Exactly. See, it's all these little things that are adding to all these complaints that I'm seeing online. Like, not to bring a negative tone to this whole thing, but like I just get it now. Like, I get it. It's the first time I've been to Disney since the pandemic, since all these complaints have started surfacing. First time using Genie Plus, all that stuff, right? So my experience this time, totally different than the last time I was there, and I gotta say, it's not for the better. But Galaxy's Edge was cool.
Galaxy's Edge was definitely, I think, maybe not the peak, but definitely one of my highlights of the Disney World experience. I think in Disney World, there's definitely some highs and lows, some annoying things, some really cool things, but I would say one of definitely my highlights was Galaxy's Edge, just walking around. One thing, if I can say about Galaxy's Edge that I have to say was one of my, is Florida has nasty water. Something I learned while I was there, like absolutely atrocious.
It's pretty bad.
Like in a first world country, I should not be able to be worried about the water I'm drinking, which is something I was surprised about. Vancouver has great water. I'm very happy with it. And one thing that Galaxy's Edge is, so we went to Starlight Cafe, Magic Kingdom, and we were filling up our water bottles. And I took one sip, and it was absolutely atrocious. And in the one in Galaxy's Edge, is perfectly pristine water. I was like, wow.
Filtered.
So if you're ever...
It's from Batu. That's why, right?
Yeah, from Batu Fresh Springs. Yeah.
It's not from the Orlando sewage waste or whatever. But one thing, and for me, it was little things like that made the world feel better. It was just like, oh, I enjoy being here because maybe more of the shops have AC, or their water just tastes slightly better. And, yes, when you're going for a lot of things. You're going for the rides, you're going for the experience, you're going to see the sights. But sometimes it's also the small things that really help your experience out.
That's true. Mubo's Droid Workshop, a shop where guests can create and purchase their own custom droid. I didn't do this, so I don't have no score to give, no opinion, but did either of you guys do it?
Busy.
Oh,
Yeah, absolute chaos in that store.
I
Like,
love it and hate
full
it for the chaos. Yeah.
I gotta say, my experience at Mubo's is definitely better in the VR game. There was just me in there.
So Alan and I were very close to when we went fully intending on buying a droid, and we got in there, and part of me loved it for the chaos. It just, all the parts are coming on this conveyor belt, and people are just grabbing whatever they want.
Yeah.
It was insane, but in the end, I was like, I just want a little more peace and quiet than this.
So the idea with that workshop is you build a mini droid and you give it a personality chip, and it's like it acts like a remote control, right?
Yeah, kind of. The personality chips also like affects the sounds it makes and things like that.
Right.
So you have a remote control, and you can buy other things. So you can buy like a serving tray for it.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was a whole accessories wall. I was
Yeah.
kind of impressed. I was really impressed by the accessories wall.
So you buy accessories. The personality chip, from what I know, kind of doesn't affect your controls as much as just like the sounds it makes and kind of like the overall feel of it. Of like, is it angry? Is it happy? I don't know. They didn't really give. I tried looking at what they did, and there wasn't much detail in the packaging. And then you kind of pick between the two main R2 and BB-8 styles, and then you find some parts to put on. Of note, one thing that is also kind of like the supply chain thing is like sometimes the cooler parts just are not coming down the conveyor belt. Like you really want this color and just...
You got to barge your way up to the front.
Can you stop? Like, if you can you just build one and then just leave it there? I haven't done the experience.
I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
I think like there's like the part
be
where you grab
savage.
things. Yeah, just build like
Just build a droid and then put it on the conveyor belt to go back in the loop, and then you leave.
Yeah.
Get the experience. Yeah.
Because you don't actually get to build it. Like, so you pick your parts and then you go to a worker, and the worker like builds it with you.
Oh, gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So Yeah, I don't think you can. Well, maybe you can back out, but I think they would just be really unhappy with
I
you.
don't know. It was for me. Whenever I for these kind of like the lightsaber and the droid, my question is, would I rather a Star Wars Lego set? And the answer was like, actually maybe I'd prefer another Lego set. For me is like a baseline, pretty Lego sets aren't cheap. They're larger items. They they last. They're kind of like semi-display pieces. So that's kind of my comparison with them. And I was like, I'd rather go to a Lego store for a little bit. But, maybe you won't.
Next on our list, Bina's Creature Stall, a shop where plush creatures and critters from around the galaxy. I just gave this like a 2, 3, something around there, Pablo points wise. I mean, they sold a lot of like very kind of little younger kid stuff, as well as very kind of niche consumer product. But my wife actually bought the little magnetic Grogu that people put on their shoulder, so I can't really say anything bad about it because we actually ended up buying something. So, yeah. Well, what did you guys think of this place?
Yeah, it's a lot more baby toys than I was expecting. Like they have like toys that definitely like a 9-month-old child will hold.
Right.
So yeah, they were definitely a lot more cute and cuddly creatures than I was expecting. Yeah, I would say like 2 out of 10.
If you
2
like,
out of 5, sorry.
If you like porgs, you can get a variety of porg products there.
So many porgs.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got Troy Dairy and Toy Maker, a workshop with handcrafted toys made by local artisans. I gave this 3 because I think this is the place where I bought a Sabak card set, if I'm not mistaken, and possibly some chance dice. I think I got them here as well. So they actually had a few different cool things, but I believe they had a Sabak board game set as well. Dejarik chess set as well. And
the game they play on the
the Millennium Falcon, they played on the table. Yeah, so they had that. They had a few things. They had like some monkey lizard puppet things that you put on your shoulder. It has a remote. You can kind of move it around and stuff. It was all right. Did you guys,
Josh, did you need a checked bag for all this merchandise you're bringing home?
Yeah, we ended up bringing an empty checked bag just to kind of like
literally.
Yeah, wow. But we ended up maybe not needing a second carry-on because I brought a carry-on, she brought a carry-on. We both had the checked bag thing, and we each had a backpack, so it was definitely more than enough luggage space. But it was useful to have just in case. Yeah.
Wow.
What'd you guys give a score for these places?
So I love board games, and I was pretty close to buying the chess set. I wish they had something to explain the rules. Like there was no like ways to like. I wanted to see if it was a game I'd actually play, and they didn't have
the rules are in the box.
Yeah, I wish before I purchased they would be like, hey, here's how you could play. I never learned how to play, and I was like, I wish they'd like here's how long the game is or what kind of game it was or something like that. And I was like, I want to know what kind of game I'm buying. I didn't want to be like I buy a lot of board games and a lot of them are duds, and I wanted to know what it was like.
Gotcha. Do you guys anyone have a Pablo score for Venus Creature Stall or Tordarian Toymaker?
I like walked through standard 3, 2.
3, 2, yeah.
Was the Toymaker the one where they also like played game with kids?
I think so. If I'm not mistaken.
So that's at the beginning of the kind of beginning of the market area.
That might be the stall. That might be the Venus Creature Stall. Yeah. I don't know.
I think it was the one where they played the games with you. Yeah.
It's one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, because I will say that was really cool, like that they were like playing the games, and also when we were there, Chewbacca and Rey were playing games with kids. That was just a fun immersive.
Yeah, so they're playing like a Star Wars memory game where you have to flip over the things.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So basically, Chewbacca was like with some children playing memory with some kids, which was actually really cool. I feel like they wish they did more like character things around.
That's kind of neat, actually. I didn't see that when I was there, but it's kind of neat that the characters would stop in at the shops and like do stuff there. So
yeah, that was probably the highlight of it.
We have 2 immersive kind of stores that for each allegiance. So there's the First Order Cargo Shop, which is a shop where guests can outfit themselves and their allegiance to the First Order. I gave it a 2. Resistant Supply, a shop where guests can outfit themselves against the First Order. I also gave it a 2. There's a lot of like little kid costume things here. A lot of younger. Like I'm sure it's great for those kids, but there was literally nothing for me, and I spent less than a minute in each of these shops.
Okay, they have one kind of cool helmet. They have a Resistance helmet, which is like a fighter helmet. Which I thought was pretty cool.
I inspected it, and it's almost exactly the same as the Hasbro Black Series helmet, except the only plus side of getting the one in the Disney parks is you can't really find the Black Series one anymore. So if you missed out on that, you can get it still in the Disney parks, but it's not the Hasbro.
So
one.
I thought I liked that one slightly more than the
First Order one.
The First Order one. I really like wearing my costumes, and most of their things were for children. And then I don't think, and I could not get their binoculars to work. They had binoculars.
Oh yeah, they had a set of binoculars. Yeah,
and they just did not work. I don't know if it was just my set or I'm dumb or something, but I just didn't no idea.
Okay, so like a 3 and a 2.
Yeah, I go 3.5, 2.5. I thought the helmet was really cool. There wasn't much else of the other one, but I really liked the helmet. Right, so maybe,
What about you, Darian?
Just walk through standard, minimal options. Kind of like I said before.
No mugs.
Feels like you're at a fancy clothing store. It's like, no, I don't want a robe. Okay, I'll leave. It was good cover for the rain though. I think the First Order, supply or cargo, is that the one that's kind of like on the outskirts?
Yeah, that's the one by the big First Order shuttle, like parked in the yeah,
there's a big, like, not a garage but like a big opening where it's really good for when it rains, right across from the milk stand, so I can appreciate that for it will rain.
Fair enough. Ellen, you got a score for these, or just kind of a walkthrough?
We looked through them. The First Order one had nothing adult when we were there, so that was like a 1 for me because I'm not 5 years old, so nothing would fit.
Yeah.
The Resistance Supply did tempt me a little bit with their tunics. So
that's a good point. Yeah, they did have some tunic stuff.
I forgot the tunic.
The tunics are cool.
They had bomber jackets too.
Badly priced. Those were like $55, so I thought that was more reasonable. So I would give maybe that one like a 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Alrighty then. Second last, we got the milk stand, a stand where guests can purchase the very famous blue and green milk. I gave this a 1. The actual immersion of the thing was cool, but I paid a lot of money for a drink that was maybe the size of a little kiddie cup that they give you water in at a McDonald's or something. Like, I don't know. What is it? What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the McDonald's apple juices or something.
Apple juice, that like the hexagon, or like the one with all the sides on it.
Yeah, the teeny little like transparent
with the tinfoil lid.
yeah, I'm thinking of one of those. That's like the size it got. It's like it was gone in no time.
I will say I was really close to buying one. I saw the size and I was like, I don't know if coconut milk was like that exciting to me, but yeah.
I got the green one. Yeah. And how much is it for milk? Is it $6 or $7.50 or something? Yeah. It's like more than the bottled Coke bottles that you get with and that's actually a souvenir you can take home.
Here's my question. How's it compared to like butterbeer?
No comparison. Butterbeer is way better. I mean, like butterbeer is just.
Because I was actually kind of beating myself up about not getting the milk. I forgot to get the milk.
Not to mention the butterbeer you actually get more of. Like you actually get a proper cup. You know. Like
also, still very small though.
Like a cup from Civilization cup. You know, when someone says give me a cup of something, you actually get a cup, not a little sample jar. But yeah, I mean, like I was a bit torn up about the size of it. I was kind of hoping it would actually be like. You know, give me a cup like what Luke drinks out of. You know, he's got that big, huge plastic thing. You know, leaves the milk stash. Whatever. I don't know. It wasn't great.
Yeah, Luke was also drinking straight from the teat. Imagine if they had one of those where you can just like press a teat and just milk comes out. You suckle at it.
Yeah. You go to the tea wall.
I would have paid $10 for that experience right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely COVID safe.
Oh geez. But yeah, I mean, it was okay. The actual flavor of the drink, it was like a citrusy kind of milky smoothie thing. Citrusy is kind of the key element there, which made it kind of weird. But it was interesting, and I at least I got to say I tried it. I paid more for the bragging rights than I did for the actual like pleasure of drinking the overpriced.
What do you do with that plastic cup when you're done?
Well, it's just a normal tiny cup, right? Like it's the kind of
So
that
do
you
you
get.
keep it, or are you supposed to give it back?
No, it's like a throwaway. Like
Yeah,
it's like a
disposable.
recyclable. Like
Oh.
if you were to just dig through someone's recycle outside right now, you'd probably find one of these things. Like it's like literally, it's smaller than the Solo cup. It's like this tiny little sample apple juice cup, like that you'd get, like, you know, maybe just a bit bigger than the ones at the dentist that you like you know, swish around some fluids. Like I mean, I could go on all day about this, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely not great. Last thing is Black Spire Outfitters, which is an apparel shop to dress like citizens of Batu. I give this a 0 because they had nothing that I would have bought. They were out of stock of all the things I would have bought, and I think this is maybe the place that you were.
This
looking
was
at the
it,
ropes.
and
Yeah.
I was very close to buying the tunic, the cream colored tunic, but as Josh said, they were out of stock on it. But that's what I wanted. This is also where the 139 Jedi robe was that I was kind of annoyed that I was willing to, you know, sell my soul, and they asked for my soul and my firstborn child, and I was like, come on, guys. But yeah, other than that, it was, the stuff there was definitely things that I wanted to look around. Nothing that I was like, this is enough to really get through the, you know, you're paying overpriced stuff. And it has to be like, I did buy a number of things at Disney World and stuff like that, and it had to be cool enough to break through the, whoa, you really don't need this and it's way overpriced. So it has to be pretty cool, and not much really broke through that for me here.
So just to wrap things up, I mean, initial impressions. Like maybe we can just start with you, Darian. Like, kind of like if you were to put it.
Can we do one just quick sweep on what it was like just going through and what your impressions of
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the land?
yeah.
Because that was probably the biggest thing of being there for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also mention any souvenirs you bought at Galaxy's Edge.
I'll go first, and I'll be quick. Zero souvenirs this trip. I did buy like mugs on other trips, and I find Galaxy's Edge, I honestly don't love it. Like I prefer, I don't know. Like my favorite is Radiator Springs in California by far. I just love how like simple it is and how, I don't know, things from the movie are there. I find Galaxy's Edge very confusing to navigate. Like you really need to spend time going, like all these shops you were talking about. Like you got to spend some serious time like finding them. That's not all just like a natural loop.
Right.
So I would prefer if it was a little more simple. But yeah, no merchandise for me on this trip.
All right. And then initial impressions for the park, right? Like, or sorry, no, yeah, okay, you weren't impressed. No, yeah, Ben, sorry.
So if I can say something here, so one thing that is interesting is, so Ellen and I have both done Disneyland and Disney World, is that the layout is slightly different, and I would say maybe, I know there's not much that Disneyland does better, but in this one, Galaxy's Edge has one big thing is it is laid out a little bit easier. It's kind of like a strip with like an offshoot.
Yeah.
So it's easier to navigate. The other thing is that, so there's two entrances. One, if you're coming from like Fantasyland, it's a small world. It's a pretty quick, like, oh, you're in Star Wars, like, whoa, it hits you hard. But if you're coming from the other direction, it's like a longer, more gradual immersion, which Ellen can talk a bit more on this, but it definitely, I like going through the other one because I think the way you go into the park is kind of important. And I'm all about like what it looks like when you're on the street and things like that. And so if you look at the Disneyland map, the walk to it is like a lot more gradual. Ellen, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so I would say with Disneyland, it's all of a sudden there's just hints of Star Wars, and then you notice the ship, and then you kind of enter into Galaxy's Edge, and then there is that one entrance at Disneyland that is like very stark, and you're like, oh, I'm just here. But with Florida, especially, well, Rise of the Resistance line is sometimes so long that it goes out into Muppet Land, which is quite funny. But it's just a tunnel, and they've tried to do a really great job. But it's just not that long of immersive into it. And then the other way is from Toy Story Land, which is just like giant toy, here's Star Wars. There's like really no connection between the two, and there's no transition. So that's why I think Disneyland is better, because there is that transition time, and there's that excitement that builds of like, oh, I am entering into Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah. For my impression, I think I'm all about just walking around, and I think we've made a lot of comparisons to Diagon Alley and Harry Potter and Universal, because I think that that's probably my gold standard in immersive areas of like.
It's kind of the first of its kind, though, right?
Yeah.
Like the Wizarding World is really the first of its kind when it comes to full guest immersion, and plus you can also dress up.
Yeah.
You
Like when I went to Universal, so in Diagon Alley specifically, not Hogsmeade, there's one ride which is a good, okay ride, probably not as good as some of the Star Wars ones, and it was my favorite place to just be because of how cool it was. I think Star Wars kind of did well. Sorry. I think my coolest part was one time we were just beside the Falcon, and Chewbacca came up to us and started talking and asked me to do a Chewbacca voice, which I don't know where it came from me, but I did it, and they asked me to do it again. I could not do it. I was like, I tried so hard. I could not summon the Chewbacca voice. But things like that were just my favorite, of just seeing, hey, this is like, it feels living. And the comparison I'd make is my favorite thing about when I was in Diagon Alley is at points they would just have like a choir play, or they would have like a little story from Harry Potter. And this one, I wish there was a little more street atmosphere. My favorite thing, actually, Ellen, do you want to tell what happened when Kylo Ren came with us?
Oh, yes. So Kylo came out and was interrogating people if they knew where the rebel base was. And there was this little, like, 4-year-old blonde girl that Kylo came up to and was like, do you know where the rebel base is? And she's, like, shaking her head, like, shaking in fear. And she's like, no. And he like, points to her and is like, well, something bad's going to happen to you if you're lying to me.
This will not end well. If you
this will not end well. And she just bursts, like, weeping, like, uncontrollable.
Wow.
And then the guy that's playing Kylo is like, this did not go as planned, and walked off. And
That's
this kid is
amazing.
just left, like, crying. The mom's trying to
And there's like a
console
big
her.
crowd around him at this point, because whenever there's a character, people follow them around. But I think those kind of things are my favorite, of just, it feels living. And I think I wish there was a little bit more. It's not quite Diagon Alley yet, but I think of all in Disney World, I felt like it felt the most alive. And that's what I kind of liked about it most of all.
Any souvenirs between you and Ellen?
I think I might have bought a Christmas ornament before, but it was
Yeah, not this time. Yeah, I bought a few things in the past. Like, I've got Christmas ornaments and some mugs from Galaxy's Edge in the past. But
yeah,
not
we've both
this
been there
trip.
before, so we kind of got the mugs and Christmas ornaments. As Ellen family's big on those, but I don't think anything this time.
Are you referring to the Coke bottle?
Yeah, the Coke bottle.
No, I actually have, like, the ornament, like, well, it's Grogu in his nest.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah, that's
yeah.
a good one.
Well, I walked home with I came back with the Coke bottle. I came back with a Sabacc card set, bag of Chance cubes, Chance dice, that is, and I got some souvenirs for some other people. I got a lightsaber belt clip for someone, and then I got a little Yoda bust for someone else who requested that while I was there. But other than that, yeah, I didn't really find much, and I think the immersion and my experience at Wizarding World was just actually like a lot better. And like you said about the transition of going into the park, I feel like Wizarding World, King's Cross Station, the whole 9 yards, the Hogwarts Express taking you from one park to the other, perfect. You know, it's as good as it could be. And there's just like a lot more kind of there to do and experience, and things that aren't really roughing up that situation. The flow is nice. It feels familiar. You've seen it in the movies. You know, you're able to like know where things are. You're able to costume up and use the wands and do whatever you gotta do to like actually like make it feel like you're in the Wizarding World. So I much prefer that experience. And I just tallied up my numbers of all the different scores, and it averages at 3.2 Pablo points out of all the things that I gave a score. So I'm really kind of like in the middle of like, you know, it was cool, but is it like a must to do thing in a lifetime? Like maybe if you really like want to go the extra mile, like, you know, go to Florida, whatever, you know, it's fun. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say like every Star Wars fan needs to experience it. I would say like, you know, there's definitely other things that you can do with your money to experience different Star Wars things that would make you just as happy. But it was still really cool. Yeah. So thank you all for coming back on the show. And I guess Ben, Darian, Ellen, we'll catch you in another one.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.
All right, and for those of you at home, thank you so much for tuning in. As usual, if you can throw down a 5-star rating for us, share the show with a friend, just like Darian, all the strangers on the airplane. I mean, you gotta hit the all audiences, right? But yeah, that would be great. It helps the algorithms, helps people find the show. And we got a few things planned on the podcast before Andor's coming out right around the corner. If you haven't had a chance to check out Saw Gerrera, What Happened, definitely do that. We got one planned for Mon Mothma, the politics of the war, and it's going to be great. We'll catch you in the next one, and may the Force be with you.